The poet Elizabeth Barrett Browning writes, "Earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God. But only he who sees takes off his shoes." God is present in every aspect of our lives. Our personal lives, our lives within our families, our relationships, our work, our faith experience, our community responsibilities. God is present in every aspect of our lives. Sometimes our lives are so cluttered with things that we think we must do, that we have to do, that we're not fully appreciative of the God who's always present with us in our doing of whatever we do. What is needed is balance. I'm sure that many of you who are working have heard there's all kinds of words of wisdom about how to balance one's work life with the rest of her life or the rest of his life. It's called work-life balance. But when you think about it, that is not a good way to look at how to live our lives in balance. Because to put work on one side and the rest of our lives on the other side is to give work much too much importance. While work is important, I would dare to say that if I were to do a quick survey here and ask you what are the more important things in your lives, work would be there. Work would be there, but I don't think it would be at the top. Am I right? Yeah. Make it easy on me, right? Yeah, it would not be, huh? We'd say family, relationships, health. Those are all values that we have. So to achieve some of those things, but work is not one side of who we are and life's the other side of who we are. Work is only one aspect of our lives. But yet, here in America, those of us who work, those of us who have professions, if we were honest, we'd have to say that we probably are living lives that are probably not as balanced as they should be. In preparing for this reflection this morning, I was looking at this insert in this week's bulletin. By the way, really invite you to take the bulletin home and look at some of the things that are online. There's beautiful references and gives you a pretty good insight into how we as Americans, how we look at work, how we look at balance in our lives. And if you're like me, you're going to find yourself somewhere online with some of the things that are being shared about you and me. But a couple things leapt out at me. Do you know what percentage of Americans who work full-time, what percentage of Americans work over 40 hours a week? 75% of Americans work over 40 hours a week. And when we're on vacation, looking at you, when we're on vacation, Americans somehow either call work or go online looking at their work while they're on vacation. Every day of their vacation. 61% of Americans actually work while they're on vacation. So if we are working 40 plus hours a week, if we are spending time on our vacation working, then we have to allow for the possibility that we're taking that energy that goes into that from something else that will make our lives more balanced. Am I right?
Yes.
That if we do that, we're cheating some other aspect of our lives. Either our family relationships, or our own personal needs, or our commitments to other things that are very important to us, our faith, our community. So how do we bring balance into our lives? By first looking at how we're spending our time. And it's not just the amount of time that we spend on one area of our lives that matters, it's the quality that we give it. And in the reference that I looked at this week, it said, it's not how we spend our time, it's how we invest our time. Our time, we can, and we do it intentionally, we can live more balanced lives. But it's hard. It's really hard because we have been led to believe that there's no time that should be left open, that we need to fill up every space open, that we need to fill up every space in our lives doing something. Those of us who are committed Christians, we can really live in balanced lives. Both near and far of our brothers and sisters in this world, and our hearts go out to them. We want to make a difference. And we don't realize that, yes, there are things that we can do, but we have to humbly accept that there are things that we can't do. And we need to do what we can, but do it in a balanced sort of way. Because if we don't, we suffer in the end. And we're not nearly as effective as we'd like to be. But for many of us, guilt has a part to play. We want to make a difference, and we feel guilty if we don't do more. I had two experiences this week with some adults. They're both here in this at this Mass, so I won't call them by their names. I won't even look at them. I'm looking away at the two over there, okay? So we have our small faith sharing groups have started this last week, and we have the rest of the groups are going to start tomorrow. So for those of you who are visiting, for the next 5 weeks, we're going to look at how our faith in the things that we do how our faith in the things that we do outside of our worship experience interacts. How we can bring our faith experience, our worship experience to the rest of our lives. So we're going to meet, and we've started, like I said, some have already started. So it's a really worthwhile thing to do. So I was at Catholic Charities. This Catholic Charities luncheon are people who are already involved. By virtue of the fact that they're there, they're already involved. So I ran into this couple. They're looking straight at me, and I spoke to them, and I'm not sure how he came up, but he said, you know, I didn't sign up for the small faith sharing groups. And he said it in a guilty sort of way. And his wife spoke up and said, and yes, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I was like, wait a minute. You're already doing enough. But they felt guilty. They felt like they had to explain to me why they were not going to do more. Are there some folks here like that? That you feel that you need to do more because you see the need, you know that the needs are real, and that somehow if you don't do it, it's not going to get done? Well, that might be true. But I have another good friend who I can always turn to. And so I asked her to facilitate one of our small faith sharing groups. And she didn't have a chance to say no because the expectation is she was going to say yes. So she and I went out to dinner. The other day, and I'm telling you, it took her maybe 20 minutes to get the nerve to tell me, you know, Leo, in order for me to do this, there are some other things I can't do. I could tell she really did not want to say that to me. this. It's not just the work experiences that prevent us from living our lives in balance, even things that we do on a voluntary basis. Our commitments to our community. We have a couple people here who have been very involved in the civic community of our nation, of the community of our nation, of the work of government. And I bet you if they were to talk to me individually, again, I'm not going to embarrass them, they'd have to say, yeah, I could use more balance in my life. We have to do that. We have to focus on that. Not only do we suffer, but we pass on that imbalance to our children. Our children, their lives are not imbalanced because they see us so driven, and they assume that this is how it's supposed to be. I've been seeing some of our teens who are preparing for confirmation. Each of them has to meet with me individually. This last week, I met with a couple of our young ladies who are going to Piedmont High, and then another young lady who's going to SI, St. Ignatius. And let me tell you, what these kids are doing, it's crazy. So I said to one, she's taking water polo, which she may like or may not like. I couldn't figure it out. Chemistry. And the reason why I couldn't figure it out is that it had nothing to do with whether or not she liked it. It had everything to do with her resume. She has to that 4.0 because she wants to go to USC. USC is the only college she can go to. USC is the only college she can go to. Her mom went there and her grandparents went there and she has to go there. And I said, are you happy? And she looked at me as if I was crazy. What does happy have to do with this? I mean, just so driven. Looking at me, you know what I'm talking about, right? The stress. And some of this is not coming from their parents. They've gotten it maybe watching their parents, but some of this is coming, it's internal to them. The other young lady who goes to Piedmont, she's a ballerina. Well, she is, she does ballet, so I guess she's a ballerina. 15 hours a week in San Francisco. The way, by my calculation, that's 60 hours a month. She comes home, she has to do all of her schoolwork, and believe me, if she's going to Piedmont High, she has a lot of schoolwork. She has to do everything else. And I said to her, when do you have free time? She has no free time because every free moment she has, she fills up something else with that time. Is there any wonder she doesn't have time to come to Mass? It's not that she doesn't care about God or her faith. It's not that she doesn't care about God or her faith. She doesn't have time for it. Now, luckily for her, she has a mother who's not afraid of telling her no. Her mother has a rule for her. P, D time, D for downtime, F for family time. And she says, you can do this, you can do that, but you're going to have some time just for play. How many of our kids are allowed to play in an unorganized way? And I'm emphasizing unorganized. In other words, no sports, but just play. How many of our kids are given permission to have downtime, where they're allowed to be bored? And out of that boredom actually comes creativity. My memory tells me that from when I was a kid. And how many of our kids have family time? Now, granted, I'm an old man. I get that. But I grew up in a family, granted, I'm an old man, I get that. But I grew up in a family where we had dinner together every day. It wasn't long. We had dinner together, we went back and did our homework. We did all the other things we had to do, but for about, let me not exaggerate, so about 35 minutes, but for about 35 minutes we sat at the table together. We did that. So, how do we do it? We do it by prioritizing. I would say to the parents who are here, don't be weekend chauffeurs. I've heard from some parents that they say to their kids, one sport and one sport only. Soccer or volleyball, not soccer and volleyball. Lacrosse or water polo, not both. Because you're going to have some time. We need to have some time as family. I've even heard older people who are retired say, and they were not joking, again, because they feel that they need to fill up those spaces. Couple recommendations. And again, all this I got from the information was given to me. The information was given to me online. Those of you who have a hard time saying no, I fall into that category. I haven't tried this yet, but I'm going to try it, and I want you to try it too. What is recommended that we do is that get up in the morning, first thing in the morning, no. No. Okay, now here's the rub. Say that in the morning 10 times, and then during the day, say it one time for real. And if you're like me, you're overcommitted, you'll have an opportunity either at work or in some other aspects of your lives to be able to say, no, I'm not going to fill up this space with that. Another recommendation, and I think this was really good. For every added responsibility that you take on, subtract another one. If you're going to do this, something that's worth doing, necessary for you to do, then look at some other area of your life and say, then I'm no longer going to do that. It's going to be hard, because you might have to give up one good thing for the good thing. But what's our goal here? Our goal is to be aware of God's presence in our lives. The earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush is afire with God, but only he who sees takes